Hey everyone, it's Paige and we are talking all things putting. We're going to start with the basics. We're going to move on to the stroke. I'm going to teach you how to read some greens, and then we're going to get into some drills. So just stay tuned for all of it. But first, we got to start out with the basics. So we have our putter, we have our golf ball. So now let's get into our grip. There are so many different ways to grip a putter, and there is no right or wrong. I like to do is two hands grip it, and then my left pointer finger, I run down my right finger. So that is my grip. This grip works really well for me because my left hand gets really active through my putting stroke. So when I put my finger down my other fingers, I actually take some of the control out of my left hand and put it more into my right hand. Some people like to run their right pointer finger down the shaft. Some people will do two fingers. Some people like to do left hand low, or if you're a left-handed golfer, it'd be right hand low. So it's pretty much the same thing, but you just switch it from here to your left hand low. Then once you have the left hand low, they'll run the right pointer finger down their left fingers, and they'll do the same thing with their left finger down. So as you can see, there's so many different ways to hold it. Another unconventional grip is the claw grip. I don't recommend starting with this grip. To be quite honest, people who do the claw grip, it's when they have tried almost every other option, and so they have to go to this grip. And so what you do is you grip it with your left hand and you make almost like a C with your right and almost turn it inward, and that is the claw grip. Again, most people who do this grip, they have very active hands, and you never want to say this word out loud, but they almost get the putting yips. And by doing this grip, you take your hands out of it, and so you don't feel like you're jabbing at it or pushing it with your hands. So this is a great grip if you are struggling with your putting. People have longer putters. There's so many other grips, but let's just stick with some of the more conventional grips and try mine first. And if that feels really great, keep doing it. I would say it worked for me, but I didn't make it on tour. So maybe try someone more successful, but this is a grip that I love and works for me. So after you find a nice grip that works for you, we're gonna move into the stance setup now. So when you set up to the ball, what I like to do is have my feet about shoulder width apart. You don't want to have them too wide, and to be completely transparent with you, I have no idea why. Everyone just does this, and it's just what you're supposed to do. There's really no rhyme or reason. I think it's to keep your eyes over the golf ball, because if you're too wide, you have to bend down further, and it's just a bit uncomfortable and hard on your back, and it changes your eye lines. So having your feet shoulder width apart really helps your setup and also saves your back if you're practicing for a really long time. I'm just guessing, but that sounds good to me, so we're gonna go with that. So you know that your feet should be shoulder width apart, and now when you're bending over, what I like to do is just bend and let your hands fall. And then you clasp them together, and that is your setup. You don't wanna feel like you're reaching or you're pulling in too close. You just kinda let them fall. Grip it, clasp them, and that's where your hands are. Again, you don't want to have them too far out or too far close, and it's just natural kind of with the hang, and that's how you find your setup. So we've talked about our grip, we've talked about our feet being shoulder width apart. I showed you how you can find where you should bend over, and I showed you then where you bend from the hips, let your hands fall, clasp them, and that's where your arms should hang. Now we're going to talk about where your eye line should be. So this is a really great drill that you can do, because I even struggle with this, is when you set up to the golf ball, and if you're still getting used to it, you can do this. Your eyes should be just slightly behind the ball, just slightly. So when I put the ball up to my left eye and I drop it, it should hit right here on this golf ball. If I'm too far away, the ball is going to drop here. If I'm too close, the ball will drop in front. The goal is to get in the right position so it drops perfect. Like that. So just do that. Again, so if I'm too far away, the ball will drop here. And if I am too close to the ball, it will drop in front. So you want to land it just slightly on the golf ball, but just a little bit behind it. And that is the absolute perfect setup. So we have the perfect setup. Now let's talk about the actual putting stroke. A lot of people think this is easy. It's the smallest stroke in golf. And you're like, how can I mess this up? Well, a lot of people actually do, and they overcomplicate it. You see a lot of people when they grip their putters, they're so tense and they're doing this, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, let's relax, you know, like loosen up. So that's what I want you guys to do. And it's gonna feel stupid, but literally shake your arms out, shake your legs out, take a deep breath, and then we're gonna grip the club. So we talked about how to grip the club, the proper setup, so you should be good to go here. When you grip the club, I want your arms to be slightly relaxed, okay? It's almost like when you're holding the club, you're gripping a baby bird and you don't want to crush the baby bird. Don't kill the bird, okay? So imagine that. So you're holding on to the grip, arms are relaxed. Most people have them locked out and it's almost like they have a triangle. I don't want you to look like this. Have some relaxation when you're putting. It really is such kind of like almost like a throwing motion with your hands. So if you're locked out, you really can't have any movement with your wrists. And that's kind of the key, the secret to really good putting. So after you relax your arms, make sure you shake them out, grab it. And most people think that when you're doing a putting stroke, it's straight back, straight through. And essentially it is, but it actually moves a bit on an arc. And it almost feels like you're hitting little baby draws with your putter. And so it opens and it closes, opens and it closes. You almost don't really even have to think about that, because if you're taking it straight back and straight through, it will automatically work on the arc. But I don't want you guys going out and in this way. This is the worst thing that you can do with putting, because you're gonna put slice spin on it. And so when you hit the ball with this movement, it turns and it rotates this way. You actually almost want, like I said, that little bit of a draw movement on your golf ball, because that's how you get it rolling perfectly straight and square and no bounces. So when we are here, you feel like you're rocking your shoulders. There's no separation between my armpits and my bicep. That's what this thing's called. I was homeschooled, okay? Don't judge me. And then it's just a little bit of a turn. I like to have a little bit of wrist movement with my right hand. I don't like to keep them perfectly square, because I feel if I do that, I get really tense with my hands. And so if my hands are nice and loose on it, it naturally just kind of falls and it works in that almost that draw, kind of open closed putting stroke. As you can see, I'm not really doing much. I'm rocking the shoulders. I have a looseness in my hands, and that's kind of it, guys. So we're going to talk about alignment and green reading, and this is arguably one of the most important aspects of putting, because you could do everything right, and if you don't read it correctly, you're not going to make it. And that's kind of the whole point of putting, is to make them. And so there's a whole process that goes into place to help you be a better green reader. And so what I like to do is I first off will come behind it, just get a gradual just look at it. I tend to look at what's happening around me. So if you're in certain places, so I grew up in Colorado, and I learned that if there are mountains here, everything's gonna break away from the mountains. So there's certain places that the greens just tend to naturally roll off to. And so if you're going to a golf course for the first time, ask them in the clubhouse, hey, where the greens normally break, because there tends to be a certain way where the greens will naturally fall. One visual I like to always remember is, if I pour water on the putting green, where is it going to run off? And so that really helps you, especially if you have a really severe, you know, okay, the water is gonna, if I pour here, it's gonna run that way, so you know that it's gonna break this way. So if I'm coming here, I'm kind of feeling it with my feet, I'm looking at what's going on around me. I like to come up halfway in between the putt You can do this for 3-footers, 6-footers, 20-footers, 50-footers, you get the point. But this applies to every single putt you're going to read. Go halfway in between, read it at the apex, see where it's breaking. It really just helps me break it up into 2 parts instead of looking at it one long putt, because sometimes I get a little confused with that. And so breaking it up really helps me when I hit that apex. Here's the thing, pace of play, really important. So when your playing partner is putting, you can go through this entire routine. Don't ever start your routine when it's your time to go. So when they're going through their routine, you can be walking around and you can be reading it. When it's your time to hit the putt, you should have already read it from every single angle and know exactly where it's breaking. And it kind of gives you something to do too, because I know when I'm out here for 5.5 hours on the golf course and my mind goes wild and I start thinking of very negative things like, oh no, if I 3-putt this, then I'm going to be, and I start to spiral. So doing things like this while you're waiting keeps you focused in on the actual shot at hand. So take your time to read it from every single spot. I like to do the 4 sides. It's behind the golf ball, you go on the low side, you go behind the pin, then you come over here on the high side and you do the same thing. See how it's breaking from this angle. Then you come behind the hole, bend down, see where it's breaking at the lower point. You can tend to read it a lot better when you're lower to the ground. And it looks to me like this is breaking right to left. So when I say right to left, it starts on the right side and it breaks left. If it's left to right, it starts on the left and it moves to the right side. I don't think this is moving all that much, so I am going to go right edge. Lining it is difficult because you don't really have anything here that you're lining up to. And so what I like to do is I'll pick, most golf balls have an arrow on the golf ball or there's a logo, but I like to line up the arrow on where I want it to go. So if this is right edge, I'm gonna line this arrow to the right edge of the cup. I like to think that I'm looking at the right edge and drawing a line directly back, and then that's where I want to line it up. Some people have a hard time visualizing that. So what you can do is find the right edge and draw it back to a point that's right in front of you. And then you can align this to the point. So again, if you have just an issue seeing things farther away, then you can find something directly in front of your golf ball, and that's where you're going to align the ball to. To help you out, because again, lining up is actually one of the more difficult aspects to golf in general. It doesn't matter if it's chipping, full swing, or putting. And so they help you out with the equipment, which is really nice. So the line on the golf ball, you're gonna line up to the line on your putter, which most putters do have this. If you have a putter that you love and it doesn't have a line, they can actually put a line on the club for you. So keep that in mind. I set my stance. Again, if you're new, you can do that thing where you just let your arms fall and relax. And then when I am looking down my line, I'm not looking at the hole, I'm looking at where the spot is that I want to hit it, so where it's breaking, because this one's not that big of a breaker, but if you have a huge, big breaking putt and you're looking back at the pin instead of the point on where you want to hit it, your mind actually tells your body to pull it back over there because that's the last thing that you looked at. I don't want you looking at the hole, I want you looking at where you need to hit the putt. We've talked about green reading, but you can't make putts if you don't have the proper speed and tempo. They go hand in hand because your speed control is going to be off if you don't have a good, consistent tempo. We talked about this earlier. If you have a very active hand, you start to yank it and push it through. And so having really consistent tempo, again, helps with your speed control. So you want to feel as if your two hands are working as one. Isn't that just beautiful, right? Teamwork. And so I like to think of this, it's quite silly, so stay with me here. We're doing this together. This has been a game changer for me, and this has helped so many people that I've given this tip to. It's called the 1 potato, 2 potato. Tempo is really hard to keep consistent, especially if you're a little under pressure or you're nervous and you tend to tighten your hands and rush it through. And so 1 potato, 2 potato really keeps you in check. You know, you can do 1 tequila, 2 tequila if that's more your speed. As a tequila girl, I like that one, but 1 potato, 2 potato keeps me relaxed. I just think it's kind of funny. So here's what you're going to do. Before you set up to the golf ball, I want you to set up directly behind it because I don't want you hitting a golf ball yet. And so what you do is you're going to do your practice swings and you're going to go 1 potato, 2 potato. 1 potato, and when I'm saying 1 potato, you always have a pause in your backswing and you go 2 potato. If I go 1 potato, you see what I'm saying? If I rush it through, I can't say 1 potato, 2 potato. So you need to give yourself enough time to be able to say that. You don't have to say it out loud. Maybe when you first try it, say it out loud, you know, because it does help, but you can say it in your mind too. So 1 potato, 2 potato. That should be your tempo. You don't need to hit it through or rush it back. Some people don't take it back far enough, and so what they have to do to get the speed that they need it to be is they'll take it here and they'll yank it through. And so people have a lot of 3 putts, and it's mostly because of their lag putting and it's their speed control. Speed control is massive, especially when it comes to big breaking putts. If you don't have enough speed, you're not going to be able to have it go on the right line, and it's going to roll down, and it's just going to be one big mess. So when it comes to putting, I want you to think, okay, we're going through our process. We already know how to read a green, but I really want you to think about speed control, because speed control is so incredibly important, because you could have the correct break, but you hit it too hard. I'm sure you've heard people say this, that you hit it through the break. So what it means if you hit it through the break is that you hit it so hard that it didn't actually take the contour of the green and fall into the hole. And so that's why speed control is so important. If you hit it too short, obviously you're not even going to give yourself a shot to make the putt. So again, yes, reading greens, very, very important, but it doesn't matter if your speed control is all wrong. You're going to test yourself too throughout the round if you are blowing it by or leaving it short, and you have these 5 to 3 footer testers all day long, and you're just bound to miss one. Even the best players in the world will miss 3 and 5 footers. It's just going to happen. And so to eliminate that, you have to work on your speed control. So there's drills that you can do that will help, but practice makes perfect. I know that when I'm looking at a 30 footer, because I've done it so many times on so many different greens, different types of greens, different speeds, that I can just kind of guess and feel it in my body because I've done it so many times. And so I always say this: if you have an extra 10, 20 minutes, don't go to the driving range and pound golf balls. Take that time and work on your speed control. And so I'm going to show you 2 drills that are really going to help you with your speed control and your tempo. So this is the Goldilocks drill to help you with your speed control. All you need is 3 golf balls and a tee. You're going to set the tee up 6 feet away from the hole. And it's called the Goldilocks drill because the first ball you're going to hit is going to be too hard. So you're going to want to try to jam it into the back of the hole. The next ball is going to be too soft and you want to just die in. And the last one is just right. That should be the perfect speed. But this helps your speed control because you're forced to hit it a little too hard, a little too soft, and just right. This is the collar drill. All you need is a putting green and 2 golf balls. What you're going to do is go on one end of the putting green and just put it to the other side. You want to get it as close to the collar as possible without going into the long grass or being well short. So this really helps you with your touch, feel, and your speed control.